Hey guys, before you guys get straight into the podcast, we had such a great and such an in-depth conversation with the Wrestling Classic, aka Justin Dillon. We actually talked for 2 hours, so we decided that we were going to split this podcast up into a part 1 and into a part 2, okay? So stay tuned. Either tomorrow or the next day, part 2 will drop with the Wrestling Classic, aka Justin Dillon. Thank you so much, and enjoy this part.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to another episode of the DropKick Podcast. Today we have a special guest with us. You may know him on Instagram as the Wrestling Classic.
He's the host of his own Wrestling Classic podcast, which you can find on YouTube. And he's coming for that King of Beards title, so watch out, Chris Van Vliet.
Please help me welcome the Wrestling Classic, aka Justin Dillon. How are you doing today, Justin?
I'm great. How are you guys? And I'm going to fix it up with just a little bit. You can find it on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Podbean, iHeartRadio, Dash Radio, everywhere you listen to podcasts, the TWC show. But you can also find the Casual Conversations on YouTube. And for Chris Van Vliet, he was actually on one of those Casual Conversations, and he just grew a beard, so he doesn't count. But anyway, how are you guys doing?
We're good, man.
We're doing great, man.
But how's quarantine been for you?
It's had its ups and it's had its downs. It's been a weird few months. Quick story, right before the lockdown officially happened, I was in California for 2 weeks and everything was bang, 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 bang. I actually moved there for 6 months a couple of years ago. I set all this stuff up, didn't go back for all of 2019. I just started working with my brother, had a bunch of weddings during the summer, and then February rolled around 2020. I was like, I should go back. My cousins really wanted to come down there to do some stuff because they got a ton of family there. And then as I was in LA, everything was bang, bang, bang. We got the show on Dash Radio. I was on Swings and Misses. I was meeting up with Wrestling for Sale. I was getting all these things done. And I came home February 27th, and everything shut down on March 1st. And I'm like, damn, the NBA shut down, the NHL shut down. Tom Hanks got coronavirus. The border started shutting. I'm like, well, that's crazy. I was glad to be home. But it got really tough because it got really boring right off the bat. When everything's so bang, 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 and then you come home and everything slows down, you're like, oh man, what am I supposed to do? I was doing the one show a week, which was the TWC show, of course, which is on Dash Radio. So we're supposed to do that every week, but regardless of the fact. But I wanted to do more, so I got creative, and I was in the past 5 years, I've been able to meet and connect with a lot of cool people, become friends with a lot of cool people. So we'll start this casual conversation thing where I just, Skype them or video call them over a different form or way, and we'll just have conversations, and we'll just see how it goes. I'll have my cup of coffee in the morning, I'm talking to them, or it'll be midday, and we're just shooting are we allowed to swear in here?
Yeah, you can
yeah.
We would just be shooting the shit, you know what I mean? So I started doing that, and then I did one with Shad Gaspard, which is really cool. And then I did a second one with Shad Gaspard. And in the first one, at the end of our conversation, I just and you guys probably do this too, hey, we should totally do this again sometime. It was great talking to you. And the thing is, me and Shad actually, like I said, a lot of the people I was doing this with, I am friends with, or I've met them, or I've networked with them. And Shad, for instance, hung out with them at WrestleCon in 2018 for a little bit, helped them do some stuff for their social media, hung out with them in California when I was down there at a bar, him, Mata, and a bunch of these guys. So, we already kind of had, a friendship going on. So it was really comfortable. It was a real casual conversation.
Yeah.
And at the end of it, I was just like, yo, we should do this again sometimes. I'd love to have you back on. Because I didn't know how many people I was actually going to get to come on there. And he's like, we should do this every week. I'm like, what do you mean? He's like, it's quarantine. He's like, I'm sitting at home. I got nothing to do. He's like, let's just do this every week. He's like, next week, next Friday, same time. I'm like, oh, he just put it on me. And I learned a long time ago, do not skip on any opportunity that comes forward to you. Because
absolutely, yeah.
A long time ago in 2015, I'm good friends with the Hart Kids, and Blade and Dallas hit me up, and they're like, hey, and this is 2015. I just started my page in 2014, so I was still kind of not comfortable as much as I am now. I didn't even show my face, say my name back then or anything. And they're like, hey, bro, do you want to do a podcast with our dad? We want to do a podcast with our dad, but we want someone to host it. Do you want to do that?
Yeah.
And I said, give me a couple of weeks. I don't think I'm ready for that yet. Let me just figure out the logistics of it.
Yeah,
and in those couple of weeks, they linked up with Nick Hossman from WrestleZone and did the podcast with him. So ever since then, I'm like, if an opportunity ever comes up, never say, just give me a couple of weeks, just say, okay, and then figure it out in the time being.
Yeah.
That's what happened with Shad. From that experience, I learned to never skip an opportunity. So that's what happened with Shad, and we started doing it. We did first casual conversation, then we did a live stream to kind of promote it, and then we did 3 episodes of the actual NFG radio. And it was like a podcast we were going to do every week. We went live on YouTube. People could ask questions and all that fun stuff. We were both promoting it. Ton of great stories, man. He told stories about his relationship with Vince McMahon, Stephanie McMahon, Triple H. Stories about OVW and Jim Cornette, his relationship with Randy Orton, like, you know, his relationship with The Rock. Just so many great stories you'll probably never. And he was an open book. And the reason he wanted to do it is because he's like, I have all these stories, and he's like, you know, I've told him to, like, my friends in the wrestling business so much that they already heard him all, and he's like, we're friends. I'm so comfortable talking to you, and he's like, I just it's a blast for me to share these stories, and so we were doing it every week, and then and then we did one on Friday. We talked for like 30 minutes after the fact. And Saturday we were sending, we were constantly throughout the week, we'd be sending each other news and like, well, should we talk about this? Should we talk about that? Or like funny memes and stuff. And and Sunday, you know, we disappeared, and then unfortunately everything happened. Yeah. So that's what I mean. Like, my quarantine's been up and down, because like that was something that I started doing this, and then I stopped for a few weeks, and now we're back doing the casual conversations. I got Nasty Leroy and stuff, but it's been weird. It's been tough to stay home. I'm a homebody as it is anyways, but like I like small social interactions, like going to the grocery store and going to the gym and stuff. How much that meant to me. And I love how everybody's gotten so creative and innovative during this period of time, finding ways to do stuff like this, and launching podcasts and connecting with people, even though we're all stuck at home. But that was a long-winded answer to you guys' question, but it's been a
good, man.
Time, man. It's been a weird time.
Stage.
yeah, for sure. So how did you come up with the Wrestling Classic? Because you built this, and it has become actually like a really big brand. So do you have any main goals now with your brand, and what was your initial goal with it?
So, like, there was no initial goal, and it sounds crazy to say that because, you know, you think I planned this out, but that wasn't the case. I'll say this. My entire life, since I was a kid, I obviously wanted to do something with wrestling. Don't get me wrong. I had other aspirations. You know, at one point when I was really young, I thought I'd be a chef or something, because I loved cooking and making food and stuff like that. You know, I was big on hockey, so hockey was like a pipe dream when I was a child, but and I got older, and it was like broadcast journalism and maybe stuff like that. But in the back of my head, like, I was always wrestling. So even as I got older and I was working in sales, or I was working at the bank, which I did for like 6 years in financial advising and all that, like, in the back of my head, I was like, oh, I wonder how I'd be able to do this with wrestling. I took marketing in school. I had a degree in marketing. Like, oh, I'd love to work in marketing for like the WWE or something. It was always in the back of my head. But it was, for me, like, it was never going to happen. Like, how do you get involved if you're not training to be a wrestler? Like, it's really hard. Like, how do you connect with these people? Like, it seemed impossible. So I find it to be a really silly story, but like, I had my ex-girlfriend. She's a great girl. She's obviously had our issues, but she was a great girl. She's awesome. Don't get me wrong. So when I say this, it like makes I feel like I say this when I share a story time, it makes it look bad, but I'm telling you, she wasn't a bad person. But there was some issues, and she wanted me to deactivate my personal Instagram account. So I deactivated my personal Instagram account. But on the flip side, I'm like, well, I stopped reading dirt sheets and stuff, because I came to the point when I was like 23 years old where I was like, man, like, I liked getting surprised when I watched wrestling. So like, I hated you know, I went through my dirt sheet phase. There was a phase where I'd go and be like, I wonder who's backstage and that. But then I got over, and I'm like, I gotta just see what happens. But I'd also like keep up to date with what was happening with wrestling through social media. And I was like, whoa. You know, Twitter was already saturated with negative fans and wrestling fan base. That was already like a thing. And I was like, well, Instagram's kind of new. And once again, marketing student. So I was doing internship. I was helping out companies with their social media and stuff anyways, launching their Instagrams and stuff. And it was 2014, and there wasn't as many wrestling accounts. And I was like, okay, well, deactivate my personal account. I like Instagram. I keep up with my wrestling and stuff through Instagram. I'll just make a wrestling page. And I was sitting there. I got the WWE Network ahead of time in Canada, illegally, beat the system, and I was eating prote, for those who knows what those are, watching the Wrestling Classic on the WWE Network. So I made a page and named it the Wrestling Classic. There was really no thought process besides that.
Worked out, man.
I posted a picture of the Macho Man. It was the first ever picture I posted was Macho Man. I did have, for some reason, in my phone, I was one of those people that, like, if I saw a really cool wrestling picture anyways, I would just save it. So I had these cool wrestling pictures in its own file on my phone. So I was like, oh, so sharing these. Because I was looking at Instagram, like, at the time there was obviously accounts that focused on current wrestling, like what was going on in that period of time, like the Shield, Daniel Bryan, whatnot, this and that. There were accounts focusing on independent wrestling, a lot of Japan and Ring of Honor and like that type of wrestling, GCW, CZW type of stuff. There were the role play accounts, the weirdos that tend to be the wrestlers. There was the meme accounts, obviously, like Meme Gene and the Funny Obsessed with Wrestling funny meme accounts. There were some classic wrestling pages. I think there was Classic Wrestling, $1 Million Champion, and
90s wrestling.
He wasn't around then. No, I'm telling you, WF Golden Era wasn't around then. Monday Night War wasn't around then. I was there before all these people. Hence why a lot of times they post stuff. I'm like, I posted that back in like 2014. But like, and then you gotta remember when I started, there was no video, there was no stories, there was no 15-second videos. It was just pictures.
Just pictures, yeah.
It was just pictures, and I started blasting out pictures and stuff. And the only reason, and I say that like as part hard work and part luck, because the only reason I think I blew up the way I did blow up initially was because there wasn't those many wrestling pages doing the same thing.
For sure.
Like now, if someone tried, it's hard because I'm like those 50 million wrestling pictures. Yeah. Pages. Some of them are posting great pictures. Some of them are, and obviously I adapted and grew. I started posting videos. I started posting matches and segments. Now, you go to like 5-6 other pages, they're posting matches and segments. Some people try to get like unique and creative. Like don't know, like Pipe Bomb News is one of the first people I remember doing on this day. But you can't own that. Like that's not something you can own. So obviously other people start doing it. For sure. So how are you going to stand out beyond that? So I always, and that's at some point, and I think it was around 2016, I was like, well, now there was a shit ton of wrestling pages, and everyone can, and none of us own the rights to these pictures, none of us own the rights to these videos, so technically I shouldn't be getting over because of that. So I'm like, I need to start being a person, and the biggest factor into that is I made t-shirts for fun. Like, I started a podcast back then that wasn't that great. Also one of the first people on Instagram to start their own podcast. I can't say the same for YouTubers and Twitter people, but from an Instagram person, one of the first people to start a podcast. Interviewed the Singh brothers, El Phantasmo, all these guys that wrestled locally around me back then. And I think I only did like 5-6 interviews and I stopped. But like I was one of the first people to kind of start doing that. And then I made shirts, and the shirts sold out, and it allowed me, helped me with my trip to WrestleMania 32. Because I missed 31, I was devastated about it. 2014, I didn't really know what it was. 2015, still kind of a hobby, still hiding behind the screen, no name, no anything. 2016, I go to WrestleMania 32, and I'm walking around Dallas, and I see a dude walk out of the Hyatt Regency where WrestleCon was at, because we were going there for Ring of Honor. At this point, certain people did know who I was, and those were like people that were in the wrestling business. Like Mandy Leon was going to get us into Ring of Honor for free. I had to pretend to be her cousin, and like so we were going there for that reason. And at the same time, this guy walks down. He's wearing a Wrestling Classic shirt. I remember. I don't know if his Instagram name is still the same, but it was Mo_Eden. I recognized said his Instagram name too, because I'm like, oh, because he commented a lot. He's very active, and he bought a shirt. So and he's wearing my shirt. And I was like, yo, that's my shirt. He's like, yo, you're the Wrestling Classic? I'm like, yeah, I'm that guy. Because you got to remember, nobody saw me. Nobody knew what I looked like besides like the wrestlers and stuff that kind of knew who I was, right? Like, like MJF followed way back in the day. Like all those wrestlers and stuff that followed that knew who I was. But like actual people that followed the page had no idea. And I'm like, that's me. And he's like, yo, can I take a picture with you? And I was so like insecure and different back then where like, I'm like, no, I don't take pictures with people. I'm not about that. But let me take a picture of you rocking the shirt. And I did, and I posted it. And then he's like, yo, you know how many people in there were asking me about you? I'm like, who? He's like, just random people. And like, even the wrestlers? They're like, are you that guy? And I'm like, oh, I need to own this.
Oh, because now you got something here. Yeah.
Wow. Now I'm like, now anybody can go around and be like, oh, I'm the Wrestling Classic. I'm that guy. I'm like, we can't have that happen. Like,
Right.
This Batman phase has to come to an end. I got to like take the mask off. You know what I mean? I'm no longer Bruce Wayne. I'm like, I'm not Bruce Wayne, the banker, Justin Dillon, the banker by day, and Wrestling Classic by night. Like, no, now I got to own this. So basically, it wasn't until 2016 that I kind of noticed there was something there. But don't get me wrong, like, I had opportunities before that. Like I was doing the interviews, I had that Brett thing happen, I was connected with the wrestlers, but I didn't realize there was really something there till Dallas. Because Dallas, I was like at WrestleMania weekend, and that's like those are my people. There's so many people that want to meet me. There's people that want to meet up with me to buy a shirt. I was hanging out with like WWE Network television show producers and stuff, having drinks with them, and they were all like, dude, we look at your page all the time. Ideas. Oh, there's something here. So now let's count on it. It took me a couple of years. So everyone's like, oh, you've been doing this long. I'm like, no, I've really only been doing this since 2016. Everything before that, I was like, that's my attitude here. I was doing dumb things. I was posting things I probably would never post now because.
Right. Too much heat, man. Yeah.
And also, I was like 23 back then. Like, I'm way old and mature, more mature now than I was back then. But I call those my attitude era. I got blocked by a bunch of wrestlers and stuff back then too because. But if I'm looking back, I'm like, man, I wish I didn't do that. But I didn't post. Like one time, Kevin Nash was flirting with Tori Wilson in our comment section. I don't think he was flirting. I think he was like. Now I say that because now I'm old and I'm flirting. But he was like, "Oh, you have such a beautiful smile," and I screenshot it, put it on my page. I'm like, "Yo, Kevin Nash, Tori Wilson still in 2015 or something." And I'm such an idiot because Kevin Nash followed the page. And I was like, "Oh crap! I probably shouldn't have done that," you know?
Yeah, it's alright, man.
Yeah,
for sure.
There's a couple of other stories too, but we'll just stick with the Nash one. But yeah.
Yeah, but you know, you talk about the Attitude Era and everything. What got you interested in wrestling? Like, what was that one moment where I was like, okay, this is like everything to me?
So it's hard for me to say. Like, I know for a fact, like, my brother is 10 years older than me, so he was born in 1981. In 1991, he was a Hulkamaniac. We have a sister in the middle, so there is a break there. But he was a Hulkamaniac, right? Like that's how he grew up, and he was the biggest wrestling fan. So, and it's crazy because he doesn't watch it all no more. He just gives two shits, does not care at all. Like has no interest in wrestling. But
can't blame him.
He was the biggest wrestling fan in the 80s and the 90s. So I was fortunate enough to like, he had all the LGN action figures. He had magazines. He recorded so much wrestling. Like, I had so many of these primetime wrestlings and TNTs and superstars and wrestling. I had all like the first like 9 WrestleManias on tape, including like the first SummerSlams and stuff. Like I had all these in my disposal. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And, and I was so like when people like, when's the first time you watch wrestling? I'm like, I don't know, probably since I was really little because my brother was probably watching and I was probably just like a baby sitting there. Like I've been watching like, my entire life.
Yeah.
Like, I don't know. I'm like my first actual memories, like the ones that stand out to me, is I remember my brother and all of his friends downstairs in this playroom we used to have at our old house, and me trying to like watch through the door, and they were watching Shawn Michaels versus Razor Ramon in a ladder match. And it was so long ago, I can't tell you if it was WrestleMania 10 or the SummerSlam one, but I remember that very vividly.
Remember that, yeah.
And the second thing I remember, and I remember 1996 a lot, because besides the stuff I watched on tapes, like I think 1996 was the year I like remember watching Raw, watching Nitro on television when it came on. And I remember summer of 1996, it was the free-for-all before SummerSlam, and it was Steve Austin, before he blew up, obviously, and Yokozuna in a match, and Yokozuna went for a bonsai drop, and the ropes broke. And that always stood out to me, and I always remembered seeing that as a kid. But there's so many things that stood out to me as a kid that got me hooked. Like, I will always say that, well, Macho Man Randy Savage is my favorite of all time. And the fact is, when I watched those tapes, my brother was a big Hulkamaniac, so I just think intuitively, I just did not want to like Hulk Hogan as much as he did. And that's just like a brotherly thing, but I loved the Macho Man.
For sure.
More than Ultimate Warrior, more than anybody else. Like, I love the Macho Man. Every time the guy was on the screen, I was like, this is the weirdest guy ever, and I can't stop watching him. You know, and he'll so colorful.
His promos, everything.
His promos, his matches. Like, I used to get mad that, like, as a kid who wasn't, like, obviously I was born in 91, so I wasn't there for, like, the Mega Powers exploding angle, but watching it on the VHS tapes and stuff, like, watching it back, because you gotta understand, as a kid, for me, that was still new, even though I wasn't alive while it happened. But I remember, like, being, like, 8 or 9 years old or, like, 10 years old and watching those back on the VHS tapes. So other than cartoons and stuff and shows I used to watch, like, don't get me wrong, I have a huge life outside of wrestling. Like, I loved X-Men and Rugrats and Pokemon and World,
everyone
that
loves
stuff
that.
too. Like, don't get me wrong, and I love music to a whole different level, a whole different topic. But I would watch a lot of those VHS tapes a lot, and I remember watching the Mega Powers exploding, and I'm like, yo, Hogan's a bad guy, man. Like, he is hitting on this guy's girlfriend.
Yeah, that's
like,
what I always thought too.
As a kid, I'm like, yo, Savage has. If I was Macho Man, I'd be a little paranoid too. Like, you know what I mean? This guy, touchy-feely. Because I always felt like Hogan was a bad guy. Like, if a bad guy hit a good guy with a chair, he's like, oh, that's so dastardly deed. Right. But if Hogan came and hits him with a chair, it's like, oh, look at Hogan, look at him saving him.
Yeah.
He's the heel, dude. This guy's a bad guy that has everybody cool. Everyone's drinking his Kool-Aid. This makes no sense to me. So I'm always the Savage guy. And even when Savage is the bad guy, I'm like, no, he's right. Hogan's a perv. Like, this is not right. Also, when I became a teenager and I went back and watched, I'm like, yo, still, not even now that I've had a real girlfriend, I've been in a relationship, I'm like, yo, Hogan's a heel. That whole angle, Hogan is a heel. So when Hogan
For
became
real, yeah.
So when Hogan became Hollywood Hogan, I was with it because I'm like, yo, this is Hogan finally showing his true colors. Like, this is who Hogan really is. This is the real.
Exactly. Right?
He's an egotistical maniac that got away with everything and thinks he's the creator of wrestling. So that's my. So I always say Savage is one of those people that really got me into wrestling and got me hooked. The second would be The Undertaker. Like I said, 1996 was the first year I remember watching, like live on television, and it was Purple Glove Undertaker feuding Mankind, and thankfully at that point Undertaker was the babyface and Mankind was the bad guy. So like I immediately just like I was drawn to The Undertaker. I'm like, yo. Because I'm a big character guy. I'm a big character storyline guy.
For sure, man. Yeah.
I always describe that like Undertaker's my second favorite of all time. Because even in the years that I didn't watch SmackDown all the time, like I'd still kind of be like, well, let's see what The Undertaker did. Like I've always had a fascination with The Undertaker. And then obviously third, it's the third person that really kept me a fan and made me a fan was Bret Hart, because he was like the font of wrestling. He was Canadian cool. Like the other two fascinated me and captured my imaginations, and I was like stuck and glued to the TV when they're on the screen. Bret Hart was like my actual like superhero. Like he was the guy. He's like those two seemed like they were out of this world. He seemed real, but like cool. You know what I mean?
Yeah. He was about it. That's the thing, right?
Yeah, and he was a really, really good wrestler. And like that's when the first two guys were character based. And don't get me wrong, Savage is an amazing wrestler, and Taker's an amazing wrestler, but they're more character based. Where Bret was like the wrestler, and then he was just
wrestler.
He was just cool. And then I grew up in that Hart Foundation era, and I mean the full Hart Foundation with Owen, Davey, Pillman. Like that was peak Bret. So yeah,
exactly.
Yeah, absolutely. So you've been a fan for such a long time. I'm curious, would you ever consider stepping in the ring one day, having a wrestling match?
No, but I think I to that point when I was younger, I broke a lot of bones. I did, typical kid that loved wrestling and just wrestling in the backyard on trampolines with my friends. And it's so funny. I think it's such a weird like way how that works out. Is like when we were kids and we'd wrestle. And like we'd wrestle, like we get like a small crowd of like the younger kids of the cul-de-sac, watch our matches and stuff, and like it's like this is prior to knowing that wrestling was scripted and how it is, and we're there scripting our own matches and calling it in our front yard, like, okay, now you come back and start hitting me now, and I'm gonna come back to you after. We're pretty much doing what they do without knowing that's what they did, like and I always
that's what makes it so special.
Yeah. I'm like, it's so weird. And I'm like, I did that so much with everything. Like, I'd have my action figures, and I'd take, like, the wrestling ring. Like, I had my own wrestling ring, and I'd wrestle my action figure. And I'm, like, booking the matches. And I'm like, yo, without knowing that's really how it works. Like, I'm booking the match storyline just as, like, a kid playing with my toys.
Right.
That's what Vince McMahon does for a living. Like,
for sure.
It's so weird. Like, when I thought about it when I got older, I'm like, and I do like creative things. Like I take my wrestling ring outside on my sun deck, and I like be like, it's Bash at the Beach or SummerSlam because it's outside. Like
I did that.
Like I've been booking since I was a kid. Like and then to go even beyond that, like then you play the video games. Like till this day, the only thing I like playing, other than when your family or your friends come over, it's fun playing with them. But if I'm ever playing one of these WWE games by myself, I'm playing Universe mode because I think in my mind I've always just loved booking. So then
for sure.
As I got older, I realized I'm like, okay. I broke way too many bones trying to do wrestling. So I broke my leg jumping off my roof onto a mattress doing a flying elbow. My bone popped out of my wrist when I tried doing a missile drop kick on my couch. There was even nobody there. I just tried doing a missile drop kick on my couch. Embarrassing story. I haven't shared that one that often. This is an exclusive. But
let's get it. Let's hear it right here on the DropKick Podcast.
There's been a ton of times I broke because nobody was really ever asked me that question because I don't think they ever assumed I wanted to step in the ring. But this is why. Like I broke a lot of bones and hurt myself a lot as a kid. I'm like, I'd probably, and back then, like, how old are you guys? You guys a little bit younger than me?
Yeah, I'm 17.
Okay, yeah, so you guys are a little bit younger than me. So back in my day when I was a kid, like, the things were a little different. Like, our parents just society generally did not know much about concussions and stuff,
Right.
And the amount that I banged my head or I let someone hit me in the head with a garbage can lid or something, or like, I'm like, how many times have we probably concussed ourselves and we had no idea? You know, times we're falling off heads and like, and it's also there's also back in the day, like if you grew up in a cul-de-sac with a bunch of kids, like you were just allowed to play outside for as long as you want until the streetlights came on. You had to come home and eat. Like, we weren't really like supervised and stuff. And there's so many things that I'm like. There's times where like we play cops and robbers on our bikes, and like I'd crash into a parked car and like flip over the car. Like, there's so many things that happen in our generation of childhood that I'm like that we weren't so modern and stuff. I'm like, we probably got hurt a lot more than we really fucking know. Like, you know?
Right. It wasn't well documented back then.
Yeah, I'm like, I feel like on more than one occasion I must have been concussed as a kid, and nobody was aware of it because I was just like, oh, I got a really bad headache, you know?
Yeah.
So, like, I'm not saying that actually happened, but I'm saying, like, I don't know. When I think about stuff like that, I'm like, I think I'm very fragile. But to what I was saying before, I think I've always kind of liked the creativity behind wrestling and the booking of it and telling those stories. So I don't know if I'd be a writer. I'd be down with that. Like, I mean, like, if I was ever to step in the ring, like, I wouldn't mind being, and listen, this is never going to happen, guys. This is just me wanting to do things I think would be cool. Like, if any independent company allowed me to be, like, a character that was just like a dick or like an authority figure or like a manager, I'd be gay. And then if that led to me having to get my ass kicked, I'm down to take an ass whooping. If people were waiting for me to see me get my ass kicked, then I'd bump around for sure. I don't think I'd ever want to like wrestle and be a wrestler and be like, you know, that whole deal. But to be like, you know, one day, you know, 10 years from now, the Paul Heymans and the Eric Bischoffs and the Vince McMahons of the world are going to be gone. You know, we'll still have Shane and Stephanie and Triple H, but we're going to need more personalities on television than just wrestlers. And when we lose those kind of personalities, Tony Khan, I don't want to see Tony Khan bumping around.
Right.
Like, you know what I mean? I don't want, like, actual people that, like, you know, like Paul Heyman and Eric Bischoff. There are people like, you waited to see Eric Bischoff get his ass kicked after all the dastardly things that he said.
Yeah.
You waited for, you know, CM Punk to get his hands on Paul Heyman after Paul Heyman turned on him. You waited for Austin to whoop Stone Cold's ass. I mean, Austin to whoop Vince's ass.
Vince's ass, right.
In that sense, like, I'd be down for something like that. I don't think I'd ever want to be a wrestler. But, yeah, that's just hypothetically speaking. I don't think that would ever happen. But either booking or something creative like that, then maybe I'd get in the ring.
I mean, never say never, right? But
True.
But yeah, going back to your podcast a little bit, besides the fact that quarantine played a major factor in starting your own, you know, casual conversations podcast, what other factor did that, you know, contribute to you starting your own podcast?
So, okay, so like I said earlier, like I had the first one where I was interviewing people. Then I had a couple of like one-off interviews. Like I got to interview Jinder when he was in town because we got really close and became friends. And he was a WWE champion at the time. He's like, yo, like he had a whole different idea of what we wanted to do together. Like he wanted me to follow him throughout the entire day, up to when he was walking out the curtain for his match here in Vancouver. But we didn't get the okay for that, which is a recurring theme of everything that happens to me. But I did do the interview with him, and we did a live stream, and there was some technical difficulties with that because I brought a guy to record it on an actual video camera, and he didn't. I don't know what he was doing the entire time because I was live streaming off my phone. My other buddy was live streaming on Cleo Thomas's Sick Living Snapchat, and this guy was supposed to be recording it. But at the same time, you gotta understand, like I'm focused. Like I'm live streaming, but also the one asking the questions, also following him around. I just assumed this guy was recording it, and he just was walking around with his hands in his pockets, and we never properly got that. Then on the flip side, I got to interview Sheamus when he came to town. And that was like proper video. I had a proper video team with me, proper mics and everything. It was really cool, and we made it happen. But I was super nervous, you know, rolling my hands. I got the opportunity to interview Heath Slater, the Rikishi, Sean Mooney, Darren Young, did a bunch of live streams with these guys. And these were all kind of one-offs.
For sure.
So like, the one thing that I wasn't, and I'm being honest here, the one thing that I wasn't when it came to the podcast and interviews is I wasn't consistent. Like, I did the first 6 with the Singh brothers and certain wrestlers, Scotty Mack, now Phantasmo, and Nicole Matthews, and Artemis Spencer, and then I stopped. And that was, like, just called The Wrestling Classic. Like, that's all it was called. Hence why none of my podcasts are just called The Wrestling Classic. I'm like, that's a thing of the past now. Then we did the random interviews. And then my boy Danny from Florida, who's running a Wiretap right now in Squared Circle on Tap, which I'm helping him with. We started a podcast called the Squared Circle DNA Show, where he reached out to me. He's like, listen, all you have to do is talk. I'll edit it. I'll do everything else. Just be on there with me, promote it, and I'll take care of all that. In that sense, I'm like, great, let's rock and roll. Because part of the reason I didn't like it is I hated editing. I hated, you know what I mean? Like,
yeah, it's
tedious.
unmotivating.
And like, you know, I'm like doing this, and I'm trying to figure that out. And So we did that, and we did like a good 70 episodes. It was really good. And that was in 2018 to 2019.
Right.
They're not up anymore, but he has all the episodes. I'm like, we should put them up somewhere and keep it as an archive. It allowed us to go to New York last year during WrestleMania weekend, and we got media for Ring of Honor in New Japan in Madison Square Garden. Like, we got to walk.
That's dope as hell.
We got to walk the halls in Madison Square Garden. Like, we got lost in the arena. Like, we literally got lost. And like, we went from like this other building into the actual Madison Square Garden, walking the hallways. But we had media tags, so nobody kind of like, anytime we did walk past anyone, we were just kind of like, and they're like, oh, okay, yeah. Like as if we were heading supposed to go. And I knew we were supposed to meet someone over there, and we were just fully lost, like legitimately fully lost. But we were like we went from this other building that's connected to the Madison Square Garden to actual Madison Square Garden and walking the hallways. It was weird.
It's weird, right?
But like that was a success of that, but. That one kind of ended because Danny kind of fell out of love with wrestling for a little bit, and he just, it was kind of bitter towards, because the thing that happens in the wrestling industry from if you are a wrestling journalist or you're wrestling media in any sort is you get this weird bad rep with the bigger companies where it's like you're helping out, you're doing them a favor, and they will come to you if they need something.
For sure.
But they don't. But they frown upon you at the same time.
You know what I mean? It's like a weird combination for sure, and the law of attraction plays a big part in that. So 100%. I think, but it's it depends. How they're feeling. Sometimes I'll get lucky with like a wrestler, like for example with Tyson Kidd. I didn't think you'd do the podcast with me, and then I sent him like a video message. I'm like, this is what the podcast, like my podcast, is about, and then he's like, you know what, I'll do it. And then he was visiting like Fit Finley at the time, so. I don't know, maybe that was just like on his mood, or he genuinely really wanted to do it with us.
And it's tough, and I'll give you guys a little advice on the air right now. Like, it's tough because you'll reach out to a lot of WWE wrestlers, and when it comes to WWE, it's tricky. Like, if there's someone that who's kind of just been there for a few years or something, they're going to tell you they're going to have to ask the rep, and they're going to have to go through somebody. And the thing is, they either won't ask because technically they really don't want to overstep, or that rep's just gonna say no anyways. Like, I remember Mustafa Ali gave me the email of the rep, and I emailed them, and they're like no, and I'm like, well, and you get a lot of no's. Don't get me wrong, but then like I said at the same time, then there's people that have been there a lot longer. Tyson Kidd's someone that's been there since like 2009, 2010. They kind of have their own
agenda, right?
They can kind of do things themselves. Like with Jinder and Sheamus. They didn't have to ask. Sheamus is like, no, we're going to do it. Jinder's like, no, we're going to do it regardless, even if they said no for the full thing. Like, we'll still do something together because they see the value. I'll say this, the talent, the wrestlers are very good at seeing the value of working together with the wrestling media. And because they see how it benefits them and how it can help us. Like, I have nothing bad to say about talent per se. I'm talking about like the company. When they have to go through the company, that's when wrestling media gets frowned upon. But then at the same time, when they want something or they need something, they will come to the wrestling media to either leak something or say something. It's weird. It's a weird. And what I'd say to anybody that's trying to enter podcasting or any sort of social media stuff, anything, is like, someone said it to me a long time ago at that WrestleMania 32 event when I was hanging out with the WWE producers and some of the social media people. Be prepared for them to say no to you a lot. Just keep going though, because they're gonna say no, and then every other time they're gonna say yeah, which is the truth. Because every other time they said yeah, I've been fortunate enough to be able to get, in a different situation. Like, there's this couple of kids. One of them had brain surgery, and he has a certain brain disease that, he's ill with, and his younger brother's autistic and gets bullied along. And, he put out a video where he wanted to meet Roman Reigns, or wanted his little brother to meet Roman
saw that,
Reigns,
right?
Because, for Christmas, they wanted to be a surprise. And I'm like, listen, like, these guys ignore me 99% of the time, but this seems like, I didn't tell them, but I'm like, let me just try. I'm like, hey, there's this video, like, do you think we can make this happen? And they said, yeah. We had an email conversation back and forth. I have so many WWE contact numbers in my phone, but like, I know I can't use them for certain things, you know what I mean?
Right. There's a limit.
I used it for that, and I made that happen, and it was really cool. I'll never get credit for it. I'm not looking for credit for it, but like I said, like, they'll work with you in certain aspects, and they understand your value, but then they frown upon you in different aspects. It's just a weird relationship. Yeah.
Right. Yeah.
Whereas if I was, ESPN or Sports Center or Forbes or something that isn't really wrestling media, it's just media for sports and stuff. Anyways, they love you. Then you're the greatest thing in the world.
Because they have that. stereotype. Sorry to cut you off, but
Yeah, that's cool.
they have like this like stereotype in their mind of like, you know, for example, like Bleacher Report, you know, maybe it's not the best sometimes, but other times they'll be like, okay, like we'll give you like Mustafa Ali or whatever, you know, to do like an interview, just hyping up like a event in Toronto or like, you know, anywhere. But for sure. But what were you saying?
I think it is just building that trust with them, and I think that a lot of that has to do with like meeting them in person and stuff. And that's another thing why this quarantine sucks is another sense of advice for anyone that's trying to do something cool like this is, and this is something the Singh brothers told me as when they were trying to be wrestlers, but I used it in the form of just doing what I'm doing too. Is like you need to show up places. Like you just need to be places. The more I started being at WrestleManias and All Ins and StarCast and Royal Rumble, and I was just at the scene while things were happening, and the more people I met, the more opportunities that came from that. Because a lot of people know the page, you see it, and then when they meet me in person, they get to know the real person. They're like, oh yeah, I want to do something. This guy's cool. It's chill. Because there is a stigma of like marks and mega marks. And what it is that these bigger companies don't want to work with like marks. They don't want to work with people that they might think are gonna leak out news or
bash
trying to get
out,
right? But like, you know what I mean? So I understand their caution behind that. So showing up places, being present, meeting people in person, shaking hands, like that's a big deal.
For sure, it's very different from having, you know, a conversation like this to actually meeting in real life. So I think it's a different perspective on, you know, everything.
This is cool too, but I think it's that face-to-face interaction other than DMs and texts and email. It's hard for them to tell your tone or your personality or judge how old you are. They don't know the difference of like maybe this guy's some 16-year-old running a wrestling account that wants to interview wrestlers compared to maybe he's a full-grown adult who seems to be a little bit professional. Okay, like they need to sense these. You can't sense these things, right?
Right. Absolutely.
Yeah, for sure. So as we tapped into earlier, you talked about going to WrestleMania 32 and seeing that fan there with your merchandise. Obviously, that spiraled into even something bigger because there's probably even more fans now with Wrestling Classic T-shirts. I know one of my favorite Instagram accounts is the Wrestling Dad. I see he always has your merchandise on.
I got a story about that too. First things first. Back to that last question though. After the Square Circle DNA show didn't work out, I started the TWC show because we got a studio, and I'm like, well, I wanted it to be a home-based show because the problem with the last show with Daniel is he was from Florida, and there's always a 3-hour time difference, and we always have to do it like this. Where one of my best friends, Devin, our opinions on wrestling, like we both love wrestling, we're really tight, we're really good friends, but we always argue about wrestling because our opinions are always so different. And I'm like, yo, that'd be the best show. You know what I mean? We don't agree on so much shit, and we start arguing with each other. I don't know what the hell that was, but it's like the best. It's like the best, most entertaining show. So we just started doing it, and now we're almost up to 50 episodes. And in the midst of that, like it's just some funny episodes because having like the TWC show is what I'm doing now, and what I'm trying to do with this one, and what I learned from the Squared Circle DNA shows, the consistency does help. So I'm trying to be consistent. I'm trying to do it every week. Like this week, Devin wasn't able to do it. And every time there's some weeks he's unable to do it, and I've already got like a backup list of like people that could be co-hosts. You know what I mean? Like, yo, Devin's not doing this week. I need you to hop on. Do you mind coming on with me? Like yesterday, I recorded with Danny from the Squared Circle DNA show and Sock Monkey Mike from Instagram. Like, why don't you two come on and we'll just talk wrestling for an hour? And now we're on Dash Radio, which is a big radio station. It's an app you can download. It's all ad-free music. It was created by DJ Ski. A bunch of people like Snoop Dogg and Lil Wayne have their own channels where they chose all the music for those channels and stuff. There's a bunch of different genres of music, country, pop, rock, everything's on there. And there's a channel called Dash Talk X, which is just podcasts. A lot of good shows on there, a lot of influencers and successful people that have shows on there, like celebrities and stuff that have shows on that channel. One of my good friends, Jyoti K, she has a show on there and stuff too. But we're on there. And there's 2 wrestling shows. There's ours and there's Wrestle Rap, hosted by Emilio Sparks, and we're the only 2 wrestling shows on Dash Radio. So that was a really cool thing that we got to do, and another reason why I'm trying to keep consistent. And if I was allowed to go back to California, I could bring people into the Dash Radio studio, and I could have interviews with them. And there's a ton of people like Darren Young and Barbie Blank and all these guys that agreed that when you come back down here, like, let's just do it at the studio, but don't know when the borders are going to open. Now going forward, the Wrestling Dad. The thing with the Wrestling Dad was first things first, he is not my dad. For everyone that keeps thinking he's my dad.
That
is racial profiling. Just because I'm both Indian does not mean he's my dad. Second thing. Wrestling Dad, I'm friends with his son. His son's name is Samit. He's King Slippy on Instagram. We became friends through social media, which is really cool. I've made a lot of friends through social media who I'm real life friends with now. He was putting these reaction videos out, and being Indian though, I thought they were hilarious.
They were, man.
Yeah, I'm Indian too.
I think elderly, and he was putting them on his personal page, King Slippy, and I'm like, elderly Indian people or any like Spanish people, any people that are elderly and they still think wrestling is real, I love that. There's something just so wholesome and genuine about it. Like they, like, you know, like,
Yeah,
sure, yeah.
right?
you know what I mean? Like he genuinely gets excited. For if you watch it, like it's so wholesome and so genuine, and you know, like he's not acting. Like that's literally him reacting, guys.
That's legit him. Yeah.
And I'll tell you a story why I know it's not him acting. So first things first, he's putting them on his page. I was sharing them, and I told him, I encouraged him, like, dude, make your dad a page. I promise you, I will repost everything. Just make your dad a page. And make it like a thing. Make it That Wrestling Dad, The Wrestling Dad. I think I pitched, but he said That Wrestling Dad. I don't know. And he started the page, and he had his dad doing it regularly. Obviously, I sent him a shirt, and his dad started rocking the shirts in the reactions, but everybody was loving it. I'd be like, gender guys were loving it. Like, you know, like everybody, like my friends from like my actual life, like that I grew up with, that don't even watch wrestling, that follow me just to support me because they're like my homies and shit. Like, they're like, yo, man, that's so funny. Like, it's hilarious. Like, dude, the Wrestling Dad, man. And he started blowing up. So to that point, Arizona Royal Rumble last year, not this year, 2019, I think, the one where Rollins won.
Yeah, that's last year.
And Becky Lynch. So since they won on the same show, but I had free tickets to the show. I wasn't gonna end up going. It was very last minute. But I was like, man, I got tickets to the show. Like the arena people reached out to me. They're like, if you promote that we're selling tickets, we'll give you tickets. And I'm like, okay. And
why not? Right.
It was in a crossover. So I just got back from California in October 2018. Started working with my brother in November. And because I was working with my brother, who does not really care about wrestling no more, it was really hard to go, hey, I want to go to the Royal Rumble, because he was like, you're either doing the real estate stuff or you're doing the wrestling stuff. And I'm like, well, I'm going to do both. But how do I do this? So it was really tough for me to ask for time off because we just started. And you got to understand, my brother's way older, way more strict, a lot more grounded, and I'm a little bit more of a dreamer, I guess. But so it was very last minute, and I didn't have a place to stay. I'm like, man, book a hotel, I'm gonna have to book a flight. I'm very spontaneous. I do a lot of things last minute. I got tons of stories of how I just showed up places last minute and like crashed in people's hotels rooms and stuff like that. But I was like, man, I'm like, Samit lives in. He lives in Arizona. He's like, just come, man, just come. He's like, fuck it, man, just stay at my place. And I'm like, all right. So I booked a flight. Literally, I think so Rumble was on Sunday. I rolled up Saturday. Like, it wasn't until Saturday.
Oh, damn. That's
booked my flight Saturday morning and left Saturday afternoon and got there Saturday evening. And there was so many people that were there that were wanting me to come. And I already gave my tickets to my friend. I'm like, you can go and take someone else with you. And then I was like, but I had 3 tickets. And I was like, and I didn't tell her I was coming. I showed up and she was like, what the hell? I showed up at a bar. She was actually, you're actually here? I'm like, oh, he's here. Like, you know, I walked in another bar. And like, what? They're like, one of the, like, it's like they saw Sting in the rafters. They're like, I'm like, I'm here, you know what I mean? But so I got to stay at the Wrestling Dad's house, though. Like, I actually got to stay at the house.
That's actually pretty dope.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
So I stayed at the house, and I was like, and this guy was like, he loved wrestling, and like, he was watching wrestling when I got there, but it was so like, felt like home because I woke up, and I guess he used to own an Indian restaurant, so he was making me like parotta and stuff in the morning, and then I was like at home, like Sunday morning before we went out to the Rumble, and then, you know. Anyways, the point of the story is, so I went to the Rumble. The Rumble was a blast. They went separately. I went with my people that I had tickets with anyways, and then went back to their house. We went out that night, everything. Monday I was going to leave, so I wasn't going to go to Raw. I made sure I got the Wrestling Dad and Samit tickets for Raw. I was leaving Monday midday, and that's how spontaneous this trip was. I literally went for a day so I didn't get in trouble. And but before I left, I hit up Jinder, and I'm like, listen, I'm like, you know that Wrestling Dad guy, right? He's like, yeah, I know. He's like, he's a huge fan of yours. Like, he really supported you the entire time you were champion just because you were Indian and stuff. Like, I'm like, listen, they let me crash at their place. You know, I came in the last minute. I got to do a bunch of cool stuff. I'm like, just to return the favor, I was wondering if we could come quickly meet you so we can surprise him, right?
Right.
Jinder's like, yeah, for sure, bro. Like, bring him and shit. He's like, of course. Like, just here, this is the hotel we're at. Come over here. Obviously, like, you know, just keep it low key and just head over here with him and his kid or whatever. So we did. And then so me and Samit took him there, and he didn't really, like, he knew we were going to meet, like, we told him we were gonna go meet the Singh brothers because I also know Hogan, and we told Jinder exactly. So like he packed like protein stuff for them to give them like mitai and
so
stuff.
nice of him.
So wholesome, man. And
that's
so
such a
the
nice
hotel, and it's a hotel all the rest of us staying at and stuff. Just in the lobby, and then Harv comes down. He like got all pumped. And then Jinder came down. He's like losing his mind. We took pictures with them and stuff. And then I got to talk to Scott Dawson really quickly and stuff because some other fan was there. Like those fans creeping just generally trying to get pictures of people and like he was so excited to meet Jinder and stuff. And then we're walking out and he sees Elias. He like runs up to Elias. He's like, "What are you gonna sing a song for me tonight?" Like da 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 da. Like he was just like he went from like an old man to like a kid that just went to Disneyland for the first time.
Right. Yeah.
And then like the whole drive home, he was smiling the entire time. And I took a picture of him smiling, and I sent it to Jinder. And Jinder's like, "Yo, that's amazing, man. Like he's the man. Tell him to keep making videos and stuff." And then Samit tells me like the next day, he's like, "Dude, he's like, man, my dad's like calling people in India, being like him and Jinder are friends. Like he should have got his email." Like so, like he's genuinely a wrestling fan. That's
for sure,
amazing, and that's my wrestling dad story. Like he genuinely believes it's real. He loves the shit, and like he's a really good dude, man. I really hope Samit can make some videos of his dad. It was getting over. Sure. I don't know why he stopped. I'm like every time it gets over, and like I don't understand.
Oh. Yeah. I love those videos, man. They're so heartwarming because he's always so happy when he's watching.
Yeah, and it reminds you of like your own parents or your grandparents when they'd watch wrestling. It's like, yo, man, like it's not, but okay. Like,
for sure, yeah. But a little bit of a personal question here, but you have a lot of success. You reached to a point where it's like Brett knows you, the Undertaker follows you. Saw your story, you posted like Shah Rukh Khan or something, and you're like, I made the Undertaker watch Shah Rukh Khan.
Kind of embarrassed. So cool. I had to like go look. I'm like, he didn't unfollow me now, did he?
But what motivates the wrestling classic? What keeps you, waking up every day and looking forward to the day, and what motivates you in general?
Okay, so I'm a little bit of a pessimistic, I guess, because I always think I succeeded as much as I want to, and I'm really she's like one of my best friends, Sidra. She one time told me, and it always stuck with me. She's like, "Hey," because I was like, "Man, I gotta do this, and that." And like, I feel like I need to do this, and why is this happening? And she's like, "Have you ever sat down and like thought about the things you've already done and how cool they are?"
Yeah.
And I'm like, what do you like? And then she'd make a list, and I started making a list. I'm like, yo, that was actually really cool. Like, this is really cool too. And I was like, you know what? I guess I've done some shit. But like,
for sure.
But I think it is because, like I said at the beginning, like when you guys asked me, like, did I have any idea that this was gonna happen? No, like, but like I said, maybe it is a law of attraction. So since I was like 6, I've always kind of wanted to do something with wrestling. Didn't know how. Didn't had the skills or talents to it, and I believe generally, and it is, and I can confirm this, it is a lot of who not what you know. You can be the most talented person at social media or anything, like video.
For sure.
Videos. You need to know the right people to make shit happen and network and stuff like that. I always say I think 2017 and 18 were my biggest years of just like straight on networking, just sliding in DMs and trying to talk, making those connections. But I think it's because I know, like, I was very fortunate that I fell onto this. I said, like, a lot of it's hard work, but, some of it I have to contribute to luck. Like, I was lucky in a lot of situations. I'm lucky that half these wrestlers even noticed my page. I'm lucky that The Rock followed me for, like, 2-3 years. I'm lucky that The Weeknd followed me, and, like, these other people followed me that made my page look cooler than it probably was. And then other people are like, well, look who's following him. I'm going to follow him, too. Like, there's a lot of it that I'm going to contribute to luck, but there's a lot of it that, if anything, I've always been consistent with the page. I'm always posting. I'm always keeping people up to date.
For sure.
And it doesn't feel like work. And it's like it's something I want to do. And if it doesn't feel like work, like I don't wake up like, I got to post in the wrestling class. I got to see what's happening. Like, I do that anyways. And then I share it. So what's the, you know what I mean? Like if I can do this full time, like let's rock and roll and do that. Like any other time I have a job, it feels like a job and I don't want to be there. That never feels that way.
For sure.
People like, what are your goals? I would love, like, listen, like, I love the wrestling classic and I want that brand to stay alive forever. I not sarcastically, I was just saying one day, in a live stream with someone that I'm like, oh no, if one day if I'm not the wrestling classic no more and I like disappear or something, and and I said something on in the terms of that, and someone's like, dude, no matter what happens at this point, you're always gonna be the wrestling classic.
The wrestling classic for sure.
I'm like, I guess that's true, and because when I started it, there was a point of I wanted to bring wrestling fans together.
Mm-hmm.
Okay? I wanted to bring wrestling fans together because I remember being a kid and finding random ass forums and chat rooms and talking about wrestling and being a troll and and it was a blast when I was a kid.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm
sure.
I miss and doing the MSN group role play websites and stuff I remember being so divulged in the internet with wrestling that I'm like, I wanted a place where people can come reminisce about wrestling, talk about wrestling, have debates and stuff. And it's not as negative as Twitter, where everyone thinks they know everything, and 90% of it is just people complaining about wrong. I'm gonna throw up some old clips, I'll throw up some current stuff. Hopefully the younger fans get interested to go on the network and watch the older stuff, and hopefully the newer fans or the older fans that might have stopped watching wrestling after 2002 or something will see the newer stuff and be like, oh, that's interesting. Oh, Hulk Hogan's on tonight, and they'll want to turn on the tune in too, because I just want wrestling to be good as a whole. I want people to enjoy wrestling this. I do and appreciate it. I always thought it the greatest form of art and athleticism, but I think it's changed a bit now. But back in 2014, it doesn't get the same respect. And even from myself, because I'm like, dude, I could be out downtown in Vancouver at a bar or something during the day drinking or something, and there'll be people wearing, Canucks jerseys or football jerseys or Real Madrid jerseys and stuff, and it's all cool. But you see a dude walk in, don't get me wrong, you could walk in there in an Austin 316 shirt and NWO shirt, and that's still cool. But if someone walked in with a CM Punk shirt, you're like, what's wrong with that guy? It shouldn't be like that.
Exactly.
Why are wrestling fans have to be so embarrassed about still being wrestling fans? You know what I mean?
Absolutely,
if you like the old school shit, it's cool. But if you're wearing a John Cena shirt, this guy's 22, 25 years old wearing a John Cena shirt. What's up with that? It shouldn't be like that. You know what I mean?
That's how I felt, for sure.
Why can't they probably wear a wrestling shirt the same way you probably wear a goddamn Star Wars shirt or an Avengers shirt? Comics are cool now. Wrestling's still cool too. Let's make it cool.
Sure.
That was the initial thing behind it. So that's really why I wanted the wrestling class to be. And I also wanted to be a positive place. I wanted to be a place where people can't argue, can agree to disagree though. You know what I mean? Not just going at each other and calling other people stupid. You don't know nothing. I know everything. No, I don't know shit. We're fans. We know jack shit. We can have opinions, thoughts. We can share our opinions and thoughts and our creative ideas and fantasy book all we fucking want, but we don't know anything. I've got a lot of friends in the industry who are behind the scene people, do social media, do interviewing, are wrestlers, are talent, are producers. And I still don't know jack shit. Do I know a little bit more? Yeah, but I'll never say I know everything. I don't, man. And honestly, I like it that way because I enjoy it more. I'm not trying to criticize and analyze everything. I was on a show in California, the Swings and Misses shows with Jennifer Decker, Eddie Pence, and Cody Decker, and they had me in the show. And they asked me, it was right after Goldberg beat Bray Wyatt, right? The Fiend.
Right.
They asked me, how'd you feel about that? And obviously, I had an opinion. I thought it was stupid. But by the time we got to SmackDown, I'm like, it makes sense. I'm down with Fiend and Cena and Goldberg, whatever. But when they asked me the question, I sat there, obviously, listen, I have an opinion, and I do think it was kind of dumb the way they built the Fiend. But I'm like, I think I've come to a point after running my page for 5 years that I don't actually get upset when something happens on the TV screen. I get more excited to see how other people are going to react.
Other people are going to react, right? Creates controversy and just
buzz. I don't even care about my own opinion. I just want to see how people are going to react to it. It's entertaining to me now.
For sure.
Right. And I'm like, probably how Vince feels because he's probably just does shit now because he's like, I wonder how people are going to react to this.
But hey, man, I think that mindset works so great because, you got to stay positive. You got to keep this, gig that you got going on, running for as long as possible. And, I feel like if you, dwell on hey, Goldberg beat the Fiend, oh, that's so stupid, then you're going to bring, negative energy to your page. And then, you know what I mean? So I think it's just
100%
depends on, what you think.
And it sucks though, because you'll see, maybe this doesn't make me sound like I'm jealous or something, and I'm not, because I think I'm doing perfectly fine. But it does suck to see that there are pages and YouTube channels and stuff that dwell in the negative aspects and are always pointing out the negative aspects, and they're
Absolutely.
out there ranting, we're like, this is stupid and that's stupid, and things will be better when Vince McMahon dies, and they're like, they like focus on, they're like anti-AEW pages, and they're always trashing
Yeah.
I find some of the stuff there, when it's funny, like, I'm not going to deny that, but like, if you built your following off being negative, sucks that those people grow so much and they have so much success, because I'm like, that's so shitty. Like, why are we so drawn to just let's be negative? Well, then why are you even still watching then if you're gonna be negative about everything?
Exactly.
And it's like, and it sucks because then those people get successful off of being negative of anything. But what that does, it creates a group of people that no matter what a situation is, they don't really form their own opinion. They come, they listen to what you say, and they're like, oh, you know what, he has a point. Well, that might have not been their opinion in the first place. That's always been my problem with Dave Meltzer. I met Dave Meltzer 2 times. I have no problem with Dave Meltzer. I think he's actually a really nice dude. I think it's amazing what he's created and his hustle and how long he's been doing it for. I've never subscribed to the newsletters, but I've read a bunch of them because I've had friends that were subscribed to him, like forwarded things to me and stuff. And I'm like, yo, the amount of work and how in depth he goes, it's amazing. Like, I'm never going to discredit him. But I've always had a problem with his star ratings because I'm like, listen, they're subjective. Form your own opinions. A 5-star match to Dave Meltzer isn't a 5-star match to maybe me. You know, we like different things.
Yeah.
He cares about, he's never laced his boots, but for some goddamn reason, he cares about like transitions and Tell me a story. That's all I care about. Like,
right?
You know,
Yeah.
Yeah.
What matters, man.
Tell me a story. And if at the end of that, I'm like, damn, I want to watch that again. That's probably like a 5-star match to me, you know? If it's a really good wrestling match that goes on for an hour and it's all just transitions, moves, and flips and flops, that's probably like a 4 or 3-star match. I mean, I watched it one time, 3 weeks down the road, I don't know if I want to watch it again. Because, you know, I wasn't invested in the story in the first place.
For sure.
So I hate it when people try to use Dave Meltzer's ratings as arguments. Well, Dave Meltzer said it was a 5-star match. So what do you know? Yeah, that's Dave Meltzer's opinions. The thing about Dave Meltzer, people, his word isn't gospel. They're his opinions and his insight and his perspective, which he's allowed to have. I have my ideas, my perspective, and my opinions. I don't expect anybody to dick ride me and say, well, the Wrestling Classic said this, or it needs to be true. Don't ever say that. Anyone listening to this, don't ever say that. I don't know any. That's my opinion. Like, you know, you can say I agree with the Wrestling Classic's opinion, but don't ever be like, well, the Wrestling Classic said this, was stated as a fact.
Yeah.
I got no facts. You know what I mean? I'm just saying.
Right. You're just another guy who watches
another
wrestling.
guy who loves wrestling and wants it to grow and wants people to watch wrestling. I want people to appreciate wrestling. You know, and if I'm going to be blunt, like a goal for me is to like, I would love to be able to work with any wrestling company out there, whether it's WWE, Impact, AEW, MLW, and help them with their social media and creating content. And I think the thing that I have and I can bring to the table is that from what I've done thus far, in a positive way, I have a really good connection with the fans. And they value what I say to do. They support me. In a positive way. It's not like I'm sitting there and trashing everything. Like, oh, this guy's the best because he speaks the truth. Because it's not the truth. There's a lot of things that suck, dude. There's so many things that whole Lana Bobby Lashley was horrendous. It was horrible.
It was terrible.
But it was funny, and we're gonna remember
it was entertainment, right? Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, let me ask you this: when Lana and Lashley got married on the episode of Raw, what else happened on that show?
Liv Morgan came back.
Okay, that happened during that segment, though, right? What else happened in that show outside of that segment? You don't remember. That's what happened. You're gonna, and that's what I mean. Like, that's what wrestling is. Like, you know, you can say it was crap, but you're gonna remember that for the rest of your life.
All right, guys. So I hope you enjoyed part 1 of the discussion. Part 2 will either drop on Tuesday or Wednesday of this week. So stay tuned.